All right, has been working on it. We're good.
Okay, so we're live streaming now. We're to the approval of the March 25th, 2026 EDA meeting minutes. Assuming you've all read them.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, Josh,
So true.
second, Doug. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, 6 EDA financials.
Yeah, so with the little hiccup here, I didn't really get a good chance to review these, but I briefly scanned through them here. So starting with the balance sheet, the one thing I'll note is Nicole has yet to, I'll talk to her, but we have the France and CD isn't listed here. There's just a typo on the description. So this CD here is actually the France and CD. It's not the Stern CD anymore because that's the one that we moved. So I'll make sure that she updates that.
Yeah, that's that last note on CDs instead of Stern's 3.9.
It's that 109 one, that middle one.
Okay, perfect. We can get that updated.
Yeah, it's at BT, and I can get you the updated rate too. So
That's the one that matures.
it matured. Well, the Stearns one matured in January.
Okay, yep.
And I think I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I think we did a year.
Yeah, I believe so.
With Franson. So again, it's just a description update. So we'll get that taken care of. But so for the end of the month, 201 had a fund balance of 135,276. 202 had a fund balance of 71,594. The RLF fund or fund 203 had a fund balance of 386,439 for a total fund balance of 593,310. Now for the month, fund 201, same song and dance, except this month we did pay that subscription to the Northern Technology Initiative 2026 membership dues for cities. That was $850. And then that 940 is for that insurance we talked about. I believe that that liability insurance or whatever that we have. It hasn't been paid yet. You can see that's down in AP, but Nicole has that book there. So and then you just have your standard allocated wages and expenses there, and the GL details there if you want to look at it. So any questions on 201? No. 202, everybody's paying on time, so the only thing for the month is the interest income we earned on the loans. So nothing more to say there than that, and that's actually the same for 203 as well. So people are paying as planned. The only thing that I'll note here is Nicole mentioned, and this is actually for April, we did not, as of the date she printed this, Mia's did not make their April payment. But
I believe it's since that's been paid.
It's been paid since.
Oh, it has.
I
Okay.
believe it's current,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only
Pretty small.
The only big thing which we kind of brought up here is Fred potentially talking to us about extending out that loan in December.
I think that's on the agenda too. And
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to talk about that now or we can wait.
Yeah,
I mean, this is just, it's 50,000. Its maturity is the end of December of this year.
Yeah. And we will be talking about a maturity CD2 here in June, but we can wait till it gets to that point in the agenda. So
Yeah, that one that matures in June.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, all seems in order. That would include the revolving loan fund, right?
what's that?
That we just went over.
Oh yeah, that's everything.
And 6.3, the SCDP update.
Yep.
All right. So all those are discussed. Everything's in order. And we'll keep moving along here. Okay, we're back to this Orvis property.
My notes said to bring it forward to this agenda too, so
Okay, I don't know how many times we're gonna discuss this. Yeah, there was an expensive report ordered by somebody. See what you're gonna, if you wanna rezone the land. 7-page report. Gives you different opportunities for what you may wanna do with it or do nothing with it. I wasn't at the last EDA meeting, but I know there was discussion on it the last couple meetings. And what is there something that we wanna you're talking about rezoning, what's the deal?
Well, at one point, it was the will of this authority as part of its strategic plan to finish infrastructure through Fawn Meadows to the Orvis property. There was money spent on a study. It just, if that course, as of 2022, the options were presented, and what stopped? Why not continue with the strategic plan?
Well,
When was the strategic plan modified? Like, at one point in time, that was the goal.
well, that was a possibility.
There was
You know, with some development of the first piece, then you could continue with it up to the Orvis property. But there's been no development, no requests or anything on whatever we're calling that Alvada there.
but there was $48,000 that was spent. Third was HRA, third was EDA, and third was the city to come up with a plan and what to do to move
Yeah,
forward.
a feasibility study.
And then there's nothing after that was done. There was a meeting that was organized jointly between the HRA, the EDA, and the council to move forward after the suggestions. And it just kind of fell off. So I guess for me, just what is the goal of the authority with the land? If that's not part of the active strategic plan that's in place, when and where was it modified? Do we need to modify the strategic plan? It's just some dots that don't connect.
Well, I think wasn't it, was there some, I don't remember that plan exactly, but was there some study of dollar cost and everything else?
Yep, it was.
And I think it was the idea, how would you do it?
Authorized through council, it gave the final authority. It was done by MSA. There were different options that were presented. There was a joint meeting that was held. Like, it was all
Basically, we looked at the options, and then, and they had, we could do everything. It was like very expensive. We just authorized basic soil borings. That was about it. They didn't really go beyond that.
Was this the, I'm trying to peel back the layers of the onion here, was this the study with Leslie that showed the future roadmap and where you could put apartment buildings, or was that later on?
That was later.
Okay.
development proposal, plan development, skeleton development, shovel-ready development. It gave very descriptive with cost estimations. Again, if that's not the will of the authority, that's fine. Then we need to update the strategic plan and figure out.
Well, I think if there's a need for it, and there's somebody coming in asking for something, it's a whole different deal. This is millions and millions and millions of dollars. Where would you even get it? How would you even come about it? I think the whole idea was it's a possibility to go up that way. They have some, a study.
Understood.
Does not have to be set in stone.
No, but understood, but if there's $48,000 worth of taxpayer money that was spent to get to this, then.
And city council approved it, I guess.
Absolutely. So if
It
that's
falls
not-
there.
then-
Go ask your council.
Okay. I'm gonna be done speaking.
I think basically for the time being, it was bought as an insurance policy.
Well, again, just off of what is available, trying to put the pieces together with what's potentially happening moving forward. Just trying to figure out if that's what the authority wants to do, then that's what we should do. If that's not what the authority wants to do, then we need to update strategic planning and update the public of what we're doing with their money.
I feel like we just kind of say, we don't really know what we want to do until something presents itself, right? I feel like we've talked about this a million times, and I just don't.
Well, it comes down to basically what's
What is the strategic plan? We don't really know until
short-term
something.
versus long-term priorities. Short-term priority seems to be housing. The long-term priorities for us were having a land for industry expansion when it was needed. And then going back, you know, we had dickered on with the Skolikis on their property, and that was going to be close to $1 million. It's like, we haven't got $1 million.
Just for everybody, if you don't know where that property is, that's
On the east side.
it's on the east side to the north. That we talked about purchasing with them, and their asking price was very unreasonable.
So that was that.
So we bought the Orbis property for
Very reasonably.
very reasonably and for future expansion, because right now you're confined within city limits. There's no other place that the city owns that I know of to do any type of manufacturing industry.
But it's the job of this authority by written bylaws to support the comprehensive plan of the city of Pine City. And that does not support the comprehensive plan of the city of Pine City.
Well, it is, I mean, it's done what's been done. I mean, I guess if the city wants to change something about it, it's up to you guys. I mean, what are you getting at here?
Not getting at anything other than there's a strategic plan that belongs to this authority that says that it has a vested interest in developing that, and by the bylaws of this authority says that it's going to support the comprehensive plan. So if the strategic plan needs to be modified to pull that out, then we need to modify the strategic plan and pull that out. In my opinion. And again, this is just my opinion. I'm trying to put together with what has happened to a certain point, with a certain amount of money being spent. And then all of a sudden there's no desire to do anything to try to move it forward other than if it's industrial.
How would we
Which
move it?
doesn't support.
How would we move it forward for the industrial purpose?
Get the infrastructure in to the property,
And then how would we do that?
partner with the city and possibly, you know, however that process, I'm not exactly sure, but the infrastructure has been studied by SEH.
Would there be any type of grants both now or in the future that could support that?
We already have received a grant at the city for several $100,000 to begin the infrastructure of that part of Fawn Meadow.
Of Fawn Meadow.
Yes, and it has to.
And that's sat vacant for 20 years.
Right, we have to get it through there to get it to the Orbis property to be able to do anything with it.
I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse here by doing anything. We don't know what that's gonna turn into. I don't.
And I will say for one, again, just my opinion, I think I think this investigation is great to see where things went and see how things went. Like I can only remember the last 2.5 years or 2 years. That's as long as I've been around. I've been kind of following along prior to that, but I don't have a game plan. I guess I would argue, Dan, that adding manufacturing, adding businesses, adding job growth, which is also tied into their comp plan. So, and I want to see housing there more than I want to see industrial park expansion. I think I've made that fairly clear, but the right partner, the right developer needs to come along, because we don't have $10 million to lay down infrastructure and start signing checks. And I don't think even if we did, that's the best route to take in X, Y, and Z. So I think I'm not opposed to business being there, mixed use being there, housing being there. It all depends on what comes along from a developer. We just have to be willing to work with the developers, and if it fits, it fits, and if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. But
I think for the time being, and to be consonant with our strategic plan, then we could just specifically target it for the time being as light industry expansion. If it changes in the future, you can change it back to housing. And I'm not ultimately we have to have a place to put industry.
absolutely. And if they're,
You know, and the whole point of zoning in your zoning ordinance is just to try to group specific things kind of together and not have them hopscotched all over the place. Which, you know, where are you going to put industry? Are you going to have it down by the school maybe? You know, or if you're going to put it out west of town, securing some of that property from some of those owners might be millions of dollars, in which case it's not going to happen fast enough to help any business that, you know, and, you know, the whole thing in business creation, businesses coming in town, generally speaking, does not occur based on anything that the city does. It's usually by word of mouth or companies, you know, checking into where they have employees, you know, and locating in those spots. And so us buying land basically is analogous to basically us, if you think about an artist, we're buying a canvas for some artist to come along and do his work. And that's the way I look at it.
no, and I agree and understand that, and
I'm not disagreeing with the zoning piece or the what's going out there. I never said anything about housing. This was about infrastructure. Nothing can be done with anything without infrastructure.
Correct.
So it can't be business, it can't be housing, it can't be anything.
But what you're ultimately saying,
This
Dan,
keeps down the load.
you think having infrastructure is going to drive interest, right?
Absolutely.
It makes it possible.
Sure, but I think our concern is do we want to put all that time, energy, money, and effort into that, and what's it going to generate? We don't know, right?
But that process has already started, is what is the point I'm trying to make. Like, the money's been spent, there's been things that have been studied to a certain point. Why
Well, if you move forward, the buying purchase of the land was the initial investment, you know, and it compels us to continue, basically, to enhance that investment by putting services ultimately to it. Just a worthless piece of land without it, really.
and I think this conversation could get much more lively once we have that second loop in Fawn Meadows and that street is ready to be. If we were ready to drop a dozer and drop some pavement down up in the Orbis property, I think this is a very different conversation. I think we've got land, let's get it developed now, let's get a return on our investment. But we're a year and a half out from getting that bottom loop finished off. At that point, I think it's great to be talking about it. I think it's great to be game planning, but we do hold a lot of what ifs in the hands right now. We've got a couple requests for information that have come in, but nothing that's been set in stone or finalized, I would say, at this point in time. So a lot of kicking the tires, but until we have something that's a firmed up plan, I think it's, again, I think it's great to
Well,
talk about it and great. to game
Right,
plan,
I mean, I think when this whole thing started, you had to finish Fond Meadows first.
Right.
There's 20, 30 lots there for housing. You know, if that starts going, then you've got sewer and water down lot A, right? That's one to the north. You'd have housing there for, unless this Plexi is just gonna explode, you'd have hundreds of lots in there, and then you could continue up to the Orvis property. That's kind of what that whole thing was about.
And that's what my thought, or that, I guess that's
You know,
where I,
Yeah, you gotta go in steps.
and I would love to say that, hey, we've got the Orbis property, it's shovel ready tomorrow. Anybody that needs some manufacturing or anybody who needs like industrial, whatever the business case may be, housing, residential, whatever, go.
Yeah, but there's a need for it, yeah.
Not at that point yet. I think we'll be 4 steps closer to that point again, since that second half of that street is finished off and it's more than just a dead end and on Meadows. You actually have some planning for infrastructure going up there. I don't think it's something that either way we should let slip away, leave the conversation, but I think it's nothing that we do today, in my mind, is going to impact us today. It may impact us in 3 to 5 to 10 years, but we're not. Now that could all, Marcy could go back to the office and there could be a phone call from a developer that says they're ready to put 300 homes there tomorrow, but
It's give me all the land free and put in the infrastructure.
right.
Free too.
Yeah, the interest here is growing. I mean, I have a meeting at 10:30. Or, yeah, the interest is growing in our area.
Good. Good, maybe we can get a house for Fond Meadows there.
Well, there should be,
Yeah, no, it's right.
there should be about, what, 15, 26 townhomes going in.
I know.
Sure,
Say now.
Awesome. Okay, any more discussion on that?
Do we need any type of action on the dams?
We have this, you want this topic to come back in so we can talk about it and just get updates maybe every other month, every month, just,
It's not up to me, but I would like to see it as an old business topic. We're on year 6 of dealing with it and spend a lot of money, and regardless, without infrastructure, nothing's gonna happen. We'll lobby for that. I will also say that there is gonna be less interest. There are businesses out there that look at Chump's property all day, every day. But if the city isn't actively working on doing anything with infrastructure or making it any better, or making it a way for them to do anything there, they're not gonna call. So
But I think if they see it's available, I think someone who's very interested does call and will say, is the city interested in doing infrastructure here? They're not, yeah.
And at this point, we have to say no. Because the city is interested, but the people that own the property are not interested. And that's the problem.
I don't think I've heard anybody say here that we're not interested in.
Yeah, where is that?
Want to make sure that there's a more concrete
Path
forward than
If a
just,
company calls and asks if the city is interested in putting in infrastructure, at this point, they have to say no because the body that owns the land is not interested in putting in infrastructure.
if we wanted to split brass tax, we would say no because we don't have $10 million in
Yeah,
infrastructure.
I think that'd be.
We may have
a little bit more.
There's interest, yeah.
So I guess what needs to change, Dan? Because I'm confused, what needs to change for the city? I don't believe we're not interested in putting in infrastructure. It just has to be the right fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do we need to change in order to have it be that way? I'm really confused.
Continue the active planning process and seeking of funds and finding partners to complete the infrastructure. Working with the city, who's already working on the Fawn Meadows portion of it, like this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It
Right.
takes years and years and years to plan, and nothing gets less expensive. Everything gets more expensive as the day goes on. So why not have a plan in place to put infrastructure? Because we all know that ultimately nothing can happen there without infrastructure. You don't have sewer, water, and comm lines going to someplace, there can be no development happening. If there's no plan for that development, then how can anybody make any plans to put anything out there? Because they don't know. And then they call and they say, we're interested in the land. Well, we're interested in putting infrastructure in, but you have to give us a better site plan or better information on what you want to do. Well, we're not going to spend that money because we don't know what the infrastructure is. How can we actively build that plan?
Well, doesn't it start with Lot A?
Yes, and we have already secured funding, and there is.
That's for that half circle there in
Right,
Fawn
which
Meadows.
brings the infrastructure up.
Oh, just up to it. What about getting sewer and water through?
That's the next part. You gotta get sewer.
Then
and
it,
water
then
through.
it would be to the Orvis property.
Correct. It's all, it has to get there, right? And be there to be able to be utilized.
Yeah,
So part of that process is in the works. Part of the funding has been secured for that. What council wants to do past that, I don't know. But again, just with them, what's been spent, this is just my opinion based in what had been happening. We just need to either modify the strategic plan that this authority has or come up with a plan to work together to get infrastructure through. Or what our portion of infrastructure on that lot would look like. Because we're the landowners as an authority.
We not have a plan that would show. I'm trying to think back here again, and I don't have the map in front of me, but we had the map from the last. Showed the apartment building, like 3 apartment buildings in the back and the street layout. Did that?
yeah, and that was by a private developer that drew that up.
Okay, because I if we were at a point, I guess I'll say it this way, if we were at a point where there was a dead end street on the Orvis property and that had water main, sewer main, however laid out,
Right.
I, for one, am not comfortable saying, let's blow a bunch of streets in there and let's put a bunch of sewer in there. Because I don't know if there's going to be one business that's taking up all of that 20 acres, or if there's going to be 3 businesses that are housing, or what's going to end up there. I do think, I agree with you, Dan, and that I think we need to have a solid path of how do we get the utilities there? How do we get a street there? How do we, and from that point, it's, then you can say go then, but I also think of like driving on the freeway in North Branch. How long have we driven past signs by the Coke plant in that cornfield, let's say 1 gig internet available, easy access to the freeway, like that's been there for 10 years, and now we're starting to see some development finally starting to happen in that area. But
am I correct in assuming once you get that half loop in Fawn Meadows, you're gonna have property to the 20 acres that's zoned residential?
correct.
So then, that developer proposed he could hook onto that, he would build on the southeast corner some apartments. Maybe if someday, but you'd have sewer and water eventually to that lot.
Right, we would have it coming up from, if my thinking is correct, we would have utilities coming up from the south.
Yep.
Um,
And then that study took off from there. How would we extend it further? What that was about.
maybe move this forward and to find a solid middle ground for everybody. If we can either work with SEH or work with somebody to get a plan of,
We have to have a generic starting point,
Like how?
something that's not specific to either industry or housing, but there's gotta be a point that makes
And
sense.
it says, here's where your sewer main's gonna be, here's where your water app's gonna be, here's where your electric, and your fiber is all gonna come in. And however, that has to branch off and split off for redundancy and all that kind of good stuff, but, we don't even really know what's gonna happen with Lot A, like, we hope that there's housing there,
Well,
but
that,
we don't know.
got 20 acres there.
Or we could
First.
grow, and this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but we don't know, like, people afford a $500,000 home, or are we looking at apartments, are we looking at some different style of manufactured homes, or what are we looking at for there? And I don't think any of those answers are super apparent at this point in time. I know personal note, I'll say, I look at my home value on Zillow and say, I would absolutely not pay that for my house, what it says it's worth, but I think that's the world we live in now.
How do we move forward?
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
But that's the discussion item.
yeah, that's fine.
If we can work towards maybe developing or see if we can see those maps again and kind of refresh everyone's mind and see how we can, at the end of the day, keep everybody's doing this.
And aware of any types of development assets that we can get our hands on, you know, to get that extended out that way. That's what we need to do.
I mean, the one developer did have a, sketch of the property. That was just an idea, is all. We had that MSA study there that I think is real valuable going forward. But I think the cost and everything just said, yeah, okay, there's a lot of things we gotta do before we need to plan the next, but, yeah, okay, let's keep it, on
The
the,
hard thing is, we own the land.
right, yeah. Okay, 7.2 revolving loan fund policy.
I believe it was added because we were expecting Fred to come. Other than that, I don't know why
It was added for discussion point from the
previous meeting.
Loan, potential for a loan for
Rokema or Ascot, anybody?
For the ask a question.
For who?
With the 61 bridge going out, I brought it up at the last meeting, if there was any way that you if that bridge is out, there's a 50-50 chance the bridge will be gone, or won't support road traffic, so having some sort of fund to fund businesses that are improved by loss of income.
So that would be part of the 7.2 discussion here is what you're saying, is why that was maybe added.
That's why I should do it.
So I thought it was to discuss an update. Because I found a couple things.
well, and Doug thought that this is not and I don't recall, but you thought we had
I think we have a current
A more current
policy.
one. Okay.
I might have that on my desk.
Oh, that's good to know.
This one calls up that it can't fund housing in any way, shape, or form, and I know we paid for, I guess we haven't paid for housing studies out on the RLF, but
What I had written down on page 2 under ineligible projects is housing developments.
Well, Josh worked with me on it. And Josh wasn't even on EDA in 17. So I-
Right. Right, yeah.
Good to know. I'll do some
I'll
thinking too.
look.
Thank
All
you.
right, so let's revisit this with the new update current one next month.
I'm glad it was on there then.
Yeah,
maybe table that for next month.
Yeah. And put the
Doug
new
will
one.
email out if you can find it.
yeah, right, let's get that one,
That's
and we'll
fabulous.
put
Thank
that
you.
on a discussion review item for next, meeting.
You recall doing that.
Yeah.
You were part of that.
Yeah, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
'Cause we're trying
You
to get
guys
everything out of there.
spent some time on that. Okay, any other discussion on that? 7.3,
I had it in my notes that at our previous meeting, we tabled the secretary position, so I brought it back.
Well, I think the question was, could somebody on was it the city basically assume that.
I think we were,
I thought that was all resolved. That, yeah, that the city personnel would take care of all the minutes.
So it's made a motion
Yes.
to table this position.
Right.
but in the
Certainly
bylaws,
not.
I guess it wasn't clear that the secretary could be a staff member, a non-board
Really?
member.
Boy, we went through that with Leslie, I thought. So are we saying that, I mean, according to 7.3, if that's a statement or what is this?
Well, it doesn't really say one thing or the other.
It just says so like, I think this is also with,
The secretary shall
yeah,
issue
so
all
we're just
notices to
keeps the
official.
minutes, because for the planning, we have a member who just holds on to all the minutes, and it's in a big binder. So that's kind of how I read this position as well.
It should be the
It's not that they're
repository.
taking the minutes and typing the minutes and getting them approved on the agenda. It's just that they're holding it all.
The secretary shall issue notice of all meetings, shall keep minutes of all meetings, shall have. Well, how do you interpret shall keep minutes? Is that actually doing?
Yeah,
Is
so
that-
He shall do it.
they
would say
Oh,
keeping
take-
minutes would be
taking-
taking minutes.
take
Oh,
minutes. If you want to change it to keeping and taking, that's fine. Or should it be taking and keeping?
I mean, the big question is, do we care if somebody on the city is a secretary of the EDA?
Not at all,
Yeah.
because, you know, you kind of want that record
Well-
to be.
Why do you laugh at? Why do you laugh?
With the gasp from the city table.
Oh,
I remember this when I first got to the city. This was brought up, and it was said that it should be city staff that does this. And this
Yes.
is when you guys were
Yes,
like 3
definitely.
years ago.
There's
And
too
we-
much. We're
Yeah.
a volunteer board. We're not taking.
And
it
staff is when you have
detailed
access to all the information to get it posted online.
minutes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so how do you want to move forward with this position then?
Well, that's we can just appoint. I don't know the legal status of it, but we would appoint the city staff to do this.
I don't think
It doesn't mean they gotta be the secretary and a voting member of the EDA.
Yeah, it's whoever the city wants, right?
Okay.
The secretary and treasurer need not be members of the board of commissioners. That's on page 3 of the bylaws, or of the bylaws approved 11/21/24.
Okay, so it can be does anyone remember if any city staff was actually appointed to that position last year?
No,
I don't feel like I was appointed.
Leslie,
It was just kind of generically, well,
maybe? Or was it just,
Just open and unstated.
You know, going back a little ways I can't think of his name, I can picture him. Mike
Gainer.
Gaynor, he was for the longest time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But he was a city employee.
and I want to say,
Yeah.
he came to it, I want to say Tabitha was the one who took minutes for him.
yeah, he was our administrator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
So it has been done by city staff.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, all this stuff is generated by city staff. None of it's generated by the
EDA.
volunteer board, period.
and just a side note is when I first joined up on planning commission in 2015, every board had their own secretary and took their own minutes and did all that, and it was a mess and a half because this person took really good notes, but this person was jotting them down on a legal pad, and a 2-hour meeting was a half page
Oh,
versus.
that's a special talent to get this.
Yeah,
all
so I
correctly.
really appreciate your skill set
You
and
bet.
your ability to keep everything uniform. Yeah. And I think with item number 1 on page, sorry, I just pulled up the bylaws. Item number 1 on page 3 says the officers of the authority shall be a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer, who shall be elected to 1-year terms. They shall hold office until their successors are elected and qualified. The president and vice president shall be members of the board of commissioners. The secretary and treasurer need not be members of the board. So like that's
So is that saying they would not have a vote?
correct. Or they don't.
So we got it, so then all of a sudden that whole thing, we got
No, like, so if you're not on the board, so like Marcy's not on the board, she can be our secretary, but she doesn't get a vote in, because she's not a member of the board.
Right.
she's not the secretary of the EDA. She's just the secretary for the city.
Can we keep it generic where it is? the city
See what I'm
staff,
saying?
not
You're
actual
talking
city staff?
secretary.
Just city staff.
Let's just say city staff.
I think so.
Okay. And it has to be done annually, so.
Hang on.
That way you still got 4 officers. President, vice president,
That was
treasurer,
tabled
secretary.
last meeting.
Yep.
All
They're
right,
voting
I think it
members.
was just to get clarity.
just to get clarity.
So we'd all be clear, you'd have, president, vice president, treasurer and secretary as voting members on this board.
If the secretary is a member.
If they're EDA members.
If, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But the
But that would be
secretary
their
don't have to be
official position, but the city staff would be taking the minutes.
Well, they'd be taking the secretary position. Yes,
I mean, you'd have a specific number of EDA members, and that's not gonna change by our bylaws, but amongst those members, they don't have to be secretary or treasurer, that could be city staff,
right.
but you still have the members, and they still have to vote on things.
On the same. Being this was tabled, do we need to make a motion to move that city staff? Okay, I'll make the motion that, for the 2026 year that, we make city staff the secretary of the.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's basically what's been happening forever. Okay, 7.4. I wanna like to hear from probably, well, whoever can answer this. What's going on with the officers' roles, positions, including Mike Salger, which has been a board member for many years, and Mark, that has been recommended to the city council to be replace Sydney that resigned. What's going on? We have 2 members now that we don't have. We're missing 2. One person or 2 people don't show up at an EDA meeting. You won't even have a quorum. What's going on?
I will speak for myself, 1 of 5. My understanding is that council is waiting for its annual presentation from EDA, and it came finally at this last meeting in April, after being asked for at the end of February.
You asked for it for the end of February, so it would have been in March.
Right,
So it came 2 meetings later.
or 3 meetings later. We got that presentation. There's things by the bylaws that after that presentation is given, that council is going to discuss in a work session, and during that work session, discuss what council feels is best with the 2 seats that are open.
When's that gonna happen?
Scheduled for the 29th.
29?
Yep.
Because there's a fire one, so there's a 29th and the 30th.
Yep, 30th.
Thursday or next Friday.
Yep, Thursday.
30th.
30th and 1st.
Mhm.
So you got your report, and now you're gonna bring it. You had a council meeting after that report, correct?
That was during the council meeting.
Okay,
and we scheduled it as quickly. There was council that discussed and motion and voted to have work sessions if possible. Starting
okay. So when is that meeting taking place?
the 30th, which is Thursday,
Uh-huh.
5:30.
5:30.
At a regular council meeting?
Well, it'll be a work session, so it'll be here, but it's open to everybody.
Okay. Can you give me the date on that again?
The 30th
April 30th, 5:30.
in this room.
All right,
I can send a reminder out too.
So as it sits now, Mike and Mark have no voting power yet.
that's correct.
Technically, yes.
Technically, yeah.
How does that impact,
We
we
have a
appoint
quorum.
vice president?
That's true. We don't have one, I suppose.
I think 5 is a quorum.
4.
4.
4
There's
is
a quorum.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the way I looked at it. Okay, April 30th, 5:30. Should have an answer.
Before we move on,
Yes.
what impact does it have that we appointed Mike vice president?
Well, I don't think it's just official yet,
Okay, we leave it in place
Right.
until,
I guess city formally.
Right, I mean,
So we don't have. a
yeah, the
VP
minutes
official.
show that, they haven't approved them, so.
To that point, anything that happened in the last meeting would be invalid. Like was not the active vice president.
But he didn't cast a vote that would have determined whether or not he wasn't a deciding vote.
That's a.
They were all unanimous
Yep.
except for one.
Yep.
And that was you
So-
dissented on one,
You were never a tie.
at least on the minutes I read.
Okay.
So we're all cool with that? All right, good deal.
Do you suggest EDA members show up to this April 3rd?
Well, I was kind of hoping that at least these two would show up and I'll show up.
I
I'd
mean,
like
is there
to
any,
hear.
is there
I
any-
just want to know if there's some, something that we should be aware of.
Yeah, that's what I'm ultimately getting
You know.
at. Like, is there something that you need to be prepared
I
for?
mean, are you guys thinking of a different course of action here?
I can't speak for other council members, of course, but
Yes.
I sit on this board. I don't have, I think we need to maybe fine tune some things and look at further options, but that's where I sit as far as I'd like to see more programming. We've kind of been in a slump of programming for the past 2 years. There hasn't been a lot of there's been a lot of economic growth. There hasn't been a lot of economic growth coming through EDA or the Brokema projects in the past year. How can we reinvigorate that, I guess, is where I'm coming from and where I'm sitting with that, but I have no concerns with the board at this point in time, personally.
Okay, thank you. Dan, you got anything to add to that?
Some of my goals for the work session are to look at some of the bylaws and things that are triggered and things that council needs to look at, and also some fine tuning. Program, I'm sorry, I don't know what my page notes is for that. Yeah, just some bylaw things. What the best course of action is to move forward, programming. If it makes sense to remain having $600,000 on the balance sheet for the operation of the authority. If some of that should be clawed back for that.
That's what I figured you were going with this.
It's in the bylaw.
All right, well, we'll get to the bottom of things. Lakeside student housing, Fred Shelter, he called in, apologized, he had another meeting, right? So we'll put them on the agenda for next month.
Okay,
I just want to be clear on that though, when it happens. I think we kind of discussed this relatively well last meeting, right? I mean, we need Fred to explain to us the why, right? Behind why he needs this, not just because it's a subpar loan or a sub-prime rate loan. It's
Right.
probably it economically makes sense to him, right? But there's been some concerns about the quality of life, if you will, there. Is that correct?
I don't think that's fair to enter into the loan aspect.
Well, if the money's not being used or it's not being intended to improve the property, why would we extend it out, I guess is my point, right? Especially if there's been some concerns about the quality of, if it's not
The
developing.
quality of the property.
Yes, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
He came, like I said, he came before us at HRA yesterday. I don't want to try to recap what he said because he just gave a very brief presentation. He's going to bring some more financials back to us in the coming months. But
What was the gist of his report?
it sounds like the building isn't cash flowing as he expected it to. Sure. He's having a harder time pulling profit than he was expecting to. And is hoping that with the new expansion of Pine Tech and with the next kind of wave of students coming in, that will help get him to where he needs to be making money and able to pay these loans back.
So it could be a cash flow.
Sounds to
concern.
me like a cash flow issue.
And that's one
In other
thing,
words, renting out enough
right?
rooms, bottom line. I mean, this isn't rocket science.
Right. And do we know what the turnover is there?
He's got 40 students currently that are not paying consistently. Those reports. Goal is 50 to 60 this fall.
I know he's gonna do
I
some
think 50 was always what I always heard as the benchmark, but yeah, 50 to 60.
doing some kind of turning of the dials for cost of the rooms. The rooms at the 550 or 450 mark were designed to be dual occupancy. It's like a dorm style, 2 people per room.
Oh, each person pay that much.
Each person
Oh,
pays
wow.
that 450 to get about $900 a month for the room itself. His words were that people don't want to have a roommate; they want a room themselves. So
That's what I understand going on. They're paying 500 a month and they're getting a separate room.
right,
Now it's going to be $750 to $800 a month. That's what he
Wants
and
to
then
do.
say his words where they can find a roommate. I wasn't at the meeting. I watched afterwards, but they can find a roommate. And
Per unit, he wants to get 750 out of it.
you know, and he didn't want to entertain. He said being a matchmaker. So saying you two and you and you are.
Oh, okay, so rent a room for 750, that person is allowed to get a room.
I suppose he's just gonna have the lease with you, and
Right,
then whatever you negotiate with
Right,
Mike
that-
is between you two.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Which then means the rates are gonna go from I'm just, from what you guys are telling me, they're gonna go from about 500 to 750. And he doesn't have enough rooms rented out now. Catch 22. Welcome to America.
Yeah, just going back to I just want to be clear, I just think I only want to consider extending it if there's an economic need, not because it's a great rate loan. Does that make sense?
And that's, I guess, I can throw it out there. What was discussed at HRA yesterday was what's a middle ground rather than just writing this out for another 3 years. And he said, middle ground for him, he'd be open to amortizing it and getting a monthly payment schedule going with it. I also brought up one of the things that he said was a key piece was he's getting so many kids that are potentially getting like the for instance like a scholarship or getting a scholarship that's paying for their schooling, and then they don't want to take out a $9,000 loan or a $7,000 loan for housing. So they're figuring out something else so that they don't have to go into debt.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They're gonna go, they can go to school there, but
They're
now,
gonna,
Basically.
yeah, but now how do I finance my living
My opinion, I think that it's important for us to check the RLF policy. I had just looked at the one that was on, that was incorrect. That extending this loan would still make sense under the RLF guidelines. Would it be still meet the criteria of that RLF loan? The amortization is already in this version of the RLF policy. There's a call out for amortization for balloon payment, and balloon payment has been worked out. And again, I share your concern too, is why is this the $50,000 that's not getting repaid? Not, you know, is it because it's the lowest interest, easy one to renegotiate with, or I also think there's things like business plan adjustment would be required and necessary. I would want to see some pretty hefty financials. And does this alter the business subsidy agreement that had to be filed as part of the RLF loan process? Those would be questions that I have too. So.
The thing is we have plenty of time. If he meets with us next month,
Right,
we have
we
plenty
can
of time.
figure
to
out
handle
what
stuff.
what we need from him.
it sounds
Usually,
like
what is it, 4% or 2%?
4.
I mean, that, it ain't too bad.
But
No, but
You
compared to
can't-
market now, it's great.
Right. And the other deal, you can't get 4% hardly on your money.
Right,
So if you want to look at it like that,
right. So he said he'd be willing to, like,
it's two ways.
I'd be more in favor of that than other balloon.
Amortization,
Yeah, yeah.
paying something on
Yeah.
principle.
Showing
Yeah.
money coming in.
No,
I'd
it
rather get
reduces
something
the
coming
loan.
in in case something happens.
But then we gotta, I don't recall, like I said, if we look at the policy, because is there certain terms and stuff, max terms we can go and stuff on that?
I don't know.
I think we got some pretty.
Okay.
ways.
We have plenty of time to talk about it. so-
Right.
Okay.
But at the same time, it comes fast because we have to get the information, have time to decide, make a decision, go to council.
Right.
It has to be a public hearing. And December's.
Yeah, no, I think we all want to hear from him.
and I think it's what he
If
does.
he can bring some financials and a business plan with him, that'd save another month.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if we reach out to him and see if he can have that prepared for both bodies for the next.
That'll speed it up a whole month.
Yeah, if rather than, because he came yesterday and had a conversation with.
Yeah,
him,
well, okay, fine, now what?
Now, is he only,
Sorry, no, you're fine.
is he only gonna provide financials for this entity here? Because here's the thing, business owners, and you guys understand this, right? Business owners, they own a bunch of different businesses. Some do great, some don't. And if we're only looking at the financials of Lakeside, and that's not showing that it's doing that great, but he has all these other properties that are cash flowing like cows, to me, that's a totally different discussion versus looking at the total business operation from a consolidated standpoint, right? See what I'm saying?
Continuing to grow and build. at the
Yeah,
same
and you
time.
have the wherewithal to pay this off, but again, you're choosing not to, or is everything not doing so great and maybe extending this out or fully amortizing it is going to help you succeed? There's two different avenues here. So I would prefer to see like the city request like copies of his entire tax return typically.
When he did the tax abatement, yes, there was all these requirements for his financials.
I think that'd be something that we could get in if we could get like updated 2026 financials or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm open
They
to,
usually had a revolving loan fund committee of members, 1, 2, I don't know who else was on it. Sydney
Yeah.
was the third one on it. This is pretty confidential information, and they would analyze it, meet
Yeah.
special,
yep, I
and
remember that.
kind of come up with a synopsis, recommendation.
Yeah, and if he's willing to, I mean,
You know,
me,
which-
Doug, whoever else, to keep it as private as possible, that's fine too.
I mean, yeah,
He is providing a service to the community, and I think that we do need to remember that he is at the end of the day, we're providing housing for people that are getting an education and trying to move forward in their life and in their career. So if we can,
And he's taking care of a building that we really don't want.
and that was attempt number 4 or 5 for
Right.
that facility. So
It's a big plus for the community.
rather than seeing that,
Overall.
that place be mothballed and just that there,
No, we don't.
yeah, I think there's a path forward. I just don't.
Would hope so. Okay, well, that's good discussion. Moving on.
8.2.
Yeah, Stern's, let me get my glasses on.
Yeah, Nicole,
Stern 6-month CD maturing June 5th for 100,000.
yeah, Nicole let me know last week that was maturing, so I thought this time let's be ahead of the game and
Right.
decide how you would like to move forward with that, so.
Josh?
Yeah, so,
Could you get some updated terms and so forth?
yeah, so my ultimate goal eventually is once, as you see these matures, to kind of have them stagger and have one kind of mature me around every 3 months.
Every 3 months,
So-
so the ladder.
Yeah, are we okay with that as a board? I mean, do we have opposition to that? So, right now we have one 6/5/26, then we have one next month, following month in July,
There's one next month maturing?
Mhm.
Oh,
6.
oh,
or July, sorry,
Oh,
Good.
a month
June,
after.
I thought I missed one.
June, July, October, and January as it sits now. So, this June one, I think we'll probably maybe look at doing maybe for a year, because then we'll have, January and June. And then as the July one comes up,
Or a 9-month.
yeah, or a 9-month, whatever. We'll get it.
Yeah.
I'll just rate shop
9
it, I
months
guess.
would be, what, March? You'd have July, October, January, March. It's getting pretty good ladder then.
Yeah.
I think I would shoot for that 9
Yeah.
month if the rates are pretty good.
I'll just
I
get
think
some.
France has got a pretty good 9-month one we just bought through the different organization I'm with.
Yeah, I'll get quotes and
Yeah.
I can send them out or whatever. And then I guess we can, rates can change between now and
Yeah,
June though. That's the thing, right? So
well, I think all we can do is put our best foot forward.
Yeah, and we'll look at
You
it.
know, unless somebody drops a whole point and nobody else does it.
Right, right.
But they're usually all kind of like gas prices.
Okay, so I'll get rates and then I can present those at, yes, next month's meeting, if we're okay with that.
Yeah.
And kind of at least
I'd like to
give us
make it,
a-
then we need to make a decision at that time.
on which way we're gonna go.
Yeah. 'cause
Yeah,
that'll be towards the end of May, and then
yes.
this will be.
Yep.
And
And then
then,
we'll be ready.
right. Anybody else got any comments or discussion points on that? Being responsible for our dollars we have.
Yeah, I said it last time when we renewed the last CD, but I think if we're gonna hang on to this money and keep it, I think it's in our best interest to make sure we're getting the best
We
rate-
always have,
best rate we can possibly get.
Yeah.
always have. And just because we got it tied up in CDs doesn't mean you can't use it.
Right.
Just so everybody has that. That's the way I look at it. Just, get the maximum amount we can out of it. Isn't like it's just sitting there doing nothing. It still can be used.
Yeah, and I like the ladder, personally, I like the laddering idea, because that way if we needed $100,000, we're waiting.
Yeah.
And we
You
have to
need it,
pull out
you need it. You got it.
pull it out, and it's not a huge
No,
fee because it's.
Okay, let's see, I don't have my revised, I put my revised one, yeah, here it is, okay. 8.3,
I think everybody got a copy, I hope, of what came in, I think late yesterday from Steve Birch at Scott. So this is his proposal. I know that Brokma has said they were also going to be putting in a proposal, but that as of this morning, it hasn't been received. So they've attached the drawings, their intention of a purchase price of $1, and then drawing of explanation of what they're hoping to see increasing and a drawing.
So I didn't get a chance to read this in advance, so can you just kind of high level?
They are building these towers.
Yep,
And so they are waiting to hear about almost, I think, it was huge. It was a huge from the Department of Defense. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was huge.
1.8 billion.
Billion. And
Not their contract.
The opportunity is U.S. Customs and Border Protection, $1.8 billion project for towers along the U.S. border.
so they're going to be wanting to make 350 towers, and they would be adding on another portion of their building that would be focusing on that. They were going to be, they were hoping for 15, was it, additional employees for sure? That would be focusing on increasing the production of these towers. And then they would have more storage space. The building itself is pretty simple of what they're looking at. But that property butts up to their property line. But Broken was also interested in it.
in that exact same parcel.
Yeah, exact same parcel.
Interesting.
It butts their land. They're gonna build a brand new building, 100 by 120. They're gonna add what is it, a dozen or 15
Yeah, I wanna say
new
15
jobs.
15
This
jobs.
is a big deal
Yeah.
here,
Yeah,
real big deal.
Yeah, like,
That's what the
yeah.
EDA is about.
yeah.
15 livable wages too.
And like any manufacturer, industrial manufacturer, you can't store everything inside. That's just part of the business.
Right.
And if they're making hundreds of these towers, they have to have a place to put them. That's what I got out of
I didn't see in this, what are they? I see the purchase price is $1. Are they asking for anything else?
No,
it. Not that I know.
Just the land, basically.
I think the county's working with them to get them,
The myth.
what's the acronym?
The myth, like Broken, my one,
Minnesota Investment
yeah.
Fund.
Yeah,
Here's
to
The
get
county.
them a grant,
It'll go to the county versus the city.
right,
But
Yeah.
that's working on that one.
right.
So what's the arrangement with this building that's on that parcel?
There is no, the parcel they want, Dan,
4200.
is to the west of Adscott property
And to the north of,
and to the east
Yeah,
of,
that little chunk by
right,
the-
0.8 acres.
I got it.
Okay,
okay,
To
There-
the east of.
into the east of Product Fab.
okay, yep.
There's been soil borings done on that land. And it's, soupy muck, not really buildable. Well, anything's buildable, okay? You can build a house in a lake, put pilings down, right? But costs a lot of money. It's just like why housing developers aren't real fond of going up to Fawn Meadows. Cause they can build them a lot cheaper in Rush City. That's a side note, I'm getting off track, but anyways, the soil boring tests, show less than desirable land, or, less than desirable soil, soupy wet. So it makes a good parking lot, a good outside storage.
And we have no idea what the intended use for Brokema would be.
No, I don't. Part of Scott's frustration, Steve is saying, look what I'm doing here. CEO. And I got the, piece of property next to me. That's, only good for about storage. I need it. I'm adding you know, a dozen plus good paying jobs. I'm putting up a couple $1 million building. I'm not asking for tax abatement.
which the city will then get the taxes on that.
Yeah,
I think that.
you need to, guys. You
something
can't just
that's
tax
important
abate
to
everything.
note here is that
There's no income.
this is owned by the city and been owned by the city. It doesn't
Yeah.
show it on Beacon, but it's been owned by the city for how long? So
Forever.
It's just been sitting there. We're not collecting taxes. It's just.
We had
there.
one potential buyer, 2 potential buyers for it in the last 20 years.
So moving it to either of these organizations, I'm personally kind of more in the boat of ASCOT, because they have the immediate need and the emergent need. I am personally also in favor of, I like the dollar asking price because it's gonna turn profit and start paying us taxes back immediately.
We've done that same thing with other pieces out there, you know, where we've sold it for $1, but we still put a clawback on it. So,
Right. Correct, everybody out there except me got their land for a buck. Because I bought it before the EDA was around.
For me, it was a surprise to hear at the presentation at the council meeting that there had been discussions of selling a piece of city-owned land to 2 different businesses, and this is all news to me. So I'd like some. There are 2 different parties. I want to make sure that
It's
there's.
all news to me too. I mean, excuse me, Dan, but yeah, go ahead. What's going on with Broken?
Well, I had mentioned to council though that there was 2 parties interested in this property. So just no formal documentation had been submitted until I think this morning. So
I just want to be clear, is this an EDA owned parcel? Or is the city just looking for EDA's input on what we think's in?
Well,
it's
EDA's function is to basically guide the city with the.
Well, but like, did
Well, it's kinda
EDA
like-
buy this parcel? Maybe that's a better question.
yeah, indirectly, because we had this when Pine City Industrial Development Corporation gave its money to the EDA.
Okay. All right.
So the city never really forked out any money for this, the way I
It was
remember.
deeded to the city, I believe,
It
is
was
what we're
deeded.
finding out.
Yeah. It's kind of like who owns the Orvis property? We bought it with our funds.
Right.
Should be on our balance sheet.
Steve has kind of a tight timeline, and I let him know last week that according to our city attorney, doesn't really work that way when you're buying land undervalued. There needs to be a public hearing. There needs to be notice of this. So
We can give them a 30-year lease for $1.
Well, they want more than money. What?
Disposing of public assets, there's certain things that trigger planning commission involvement potentially. That's the public hearing part of it, right?
yeah, the attorney said it could be done through either council or EDA where there's a public hearing, and since if it were to be sold for $1, we need to do a public hearing.
I'd like to get something here formalized, how we're gonna proceed, how we should proceed. What's our timeline, what's our
Yeah.
time frame here?
Could we give a deadline for Rokema to potentially give their proposal?
I don't know, did we?
No, do we? I mean, should we?
Well, we should have.
Do we have to public notice that this piece of land is for sale to allow everybody an opportunity to purchase it?
Well, it's been on our website.
Can we just offer it? Yes.
Yeah, it's always been on our website as a for sale parcel.
Perfect.
Okay,
But we know we have 2 interested parties, right, potentially?
yes, 2
Right.
have reached out to the city. Yes.
So if we think we want to.
Which is really weird. Why would 2 people have been sitting there vacant for 20 years? Why all of a sudden, you know, I can see why Ascot is, because they're planning this big expansion for their towers, right? That makes sense.
Ironically, Brokema reached out first though, that they were interested.
Well, because Rokema had that,
Ascot reached out first.
Not, well, maybe to you, but not to the city.
but
This-
Rokema was doing an expansion too though, right?
No,
Yeah,
they're just
That's
Putting-
in-house.
They're just putting a new piece of equipment
It's not
inside.
changing their footprint.
Oh, I know,
But
okay.
We're not gonna get any more tax revenue.
Oh, yeah,
Because they put a
But
$5
they're
million
increasing
piece of
jobs
equipment.
and
yeah.
Does Broken's plan not involve a structure on that site?
I have no idea.
No, I think it says a parking lot or something.
No.
Oh, broke them up.
No,
That's got to start. Yeah, I don't think we know, right? Because there's nothing formal.
no, I don't know.
So I guess if it were me, I would say we set a deadline. If this is something we're interested in moving forward with, and say,
I think it should be pronto.
yeah,
Can the timeline be if we don't hear back from Brokema within the next month, before the next EDA meeting, that?
Scott got this in about 5 days. Or when did you request it? Did you request something from Brokema?
Yeah, I want to say it was within the week.
Or both at the same time?
Correct.
Well, then just kind of wait if they don't.
Wow.
If they don't ship.
I guess you need to put a deadline on it, or rewrite a letter saying,
Well,
You know.
Ascot had hoped this would go to council at the next agenda and get an answer. And I said, it doesn't really work like that, but, so,
Yeah, I guess
it's gotta,
I would hate to, I kind of, it's an interesting situation, because I don't love pitting two longtime neighbors against each other.
no, that's the last thing you want.
right.
For a piece of property, but I would also hate for this to be, if we don't put a deadline on it, then all of a sudden the can gets kicked down the road, and then now Brokema doesn't want it, and now Ascot doesn't want it, and then we're no farther ahead than we are now. So I'd like to, if there is interest and there is a desire to move forward from,
I think Ascot's need is absolute.
yeah.
right. Based on what we know right now,
Well, you could be holding them up on their building where they're gonna put it,
right?
and they gotta get this building up.
If they're, yeah.
The wheels of government, may move slow, but you gotta speed it up.
Yeah, and if they're waiting for a contract, like if they're ready to go, ready to start building, ready to hit
Right.
the ground running and
He has to have that building done by January 1st.
Sure. Can we do?
Like end of next week.
I was
gonna say,
even
can-
thinking Monday,
Can we do?
Yeah, I mean-
by end of day Monday.
And do we want to have this authority look over both proposals? We can call them special meetings.
Call a special meeting.
Yeah, I think so, at least
Yeah.
we get studied and give a recommendation.
Yeah.
To the council.
Yeah, because the next agenda is gonna go out, not this Friday, but the following Friday. So if we could get this to you by next Tuesday, Wednesday to review, I could actually get it on the council agenda.
Yeah, perfect.
And can we make a motion that
Oh,
if,
not, well, to review, yeah, we need. But the public hearing could be set for the next EDA meeting as well, because the city attorney said it could be done either through EDA or council.
Have a council.
well, if we get it by Monday, I guess we can meet. There should be enough time, hopefully, to, and if there is nothing, I guess we kind of know the answer, right? I think.
Okay.
Well, and I would like to,
I just want to make sure that we're
right,
legally doing this, setting these deadlines. Do we have that authority as this body? Just questions I want to make sure we're not, because it is a public piece of land. Is the EDA the one that can set that deadline? Is there law precedent that's there? Do we have to? Yeah, I just want to make sure we're doing this the right way.
And I agree with you, Dan. And, but I think to Mr. Anderson's point earlier, most of these lots that are on this industrial or in the industrial park were acquired the same. Because they're gonna cause a increase in tax, and I don't know, I obviously wasn't around.
anybody that wants to buy these properties would have to come up with a business plan.
I'm just, again,
Yeah, no, I don't know what the legal stuff is, I'm sure you can.
Is that
ask
something you
the
can ask
attorney.
Reese real quick? I mean,
it would have to be our.
oh, I suppose he's a county.
Supposed to be $500.
Yeah, we're very limited on what we use.
Just send a letter and tell me if you want it.
Are we getting ahead of ourselves? Saying if we have a deadline, we set a deadline, Brokema doesn't meet that deadline, then we want to accept this?
That's kind of where I'm headed, but I'll add to that. If Ascot gets this land, we don't want to create an enemy with Brokema.
Correct.
So
We have to
what
see they want.
needs to be done, I guess, is if we do that or don't do that, we should be reaching out to Brokema. We have other land available.
Right.
Okay, that's your next option. I'm just putting out a scenario. Ascot, this abuts Ascot. It works best for them. You need more property. We can make that happen too.
Yeah, cause this is,
Like the shooting range there.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be perfect for more
Yeah,
storage.
and ironically, that's where our equipment is today.
So, you know, to answer your question, that's kind of where I would lean to, but if Brookman comes up with a
Hell of an idea.
hell of an idea, that now we're really in a conundrum, but we'll face that when it happens. You don't know. I would like to put a deadline on the request for Brookman, as long as, assuming that stuff's legal. This board doesn't know those things, right? We're just direct the city to do it, and they gotta figure that out.
But a short timeline.
Yes,
Short as possible. I mean, a week, you know, whatever.
yeah, no, personal opinion, I think it makes sense for, personally, I think it makes sense for Ascot to get this plot of land, without seeing Brokenmus proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even going farther back, Ascot's been here like 70 years, 60 years.
Right, I mean, they've been good stewards for this community.
Yeah.
A lot of good paying jobs, a lot of long-term jobs. They've been a good partner.
Anytime any of us businesses have needed any side machining done, a lot of times they've just done it.
Right.
They have incredible employee retention.
I mean,
That says a lot about
You know,
them.
they build these buildings, they don't come to the city and ask for tax abatement and TIF.
It's just gonna be.
It's like I built buildings in the industrial park last year. I didn't come to you guys and ask for it. We just do it.
Right. You know, we wanted our
But unless you want to give me some.
our workbenches were wearing out. And one of the guys from Ascot came in and said, "God, those are grody looking workbenches." They went out and made stainless steel wrap plates. How much do you want for them? You guys do us a lot of favors. You can have them.
Good guys. So I don't know if we need any official deal for this. I mean, just a conversation that Marcy, you're gonna write Brookman a letter saying we need their proposal.
And
We'd
if we
like
need
to
a
have
special
it
meeting,
by,
then we need to have notice of that.
yeah.
Right.
And if we do not get it,
Confirmatory notice, kind of.
then do we have to if we don't get anything, do we need a special meeting?
well, I guess he left, but I was gonna say, if that's the case, if we're on agreement, I guess I'm then saying,
All
well,
that motion would be to go ahead
yeah,
and recommend it.
Well, I'd make a motion that if we don't get anything from them, I recommend that we approve Scott's proposal.
Yeah, because regardless if there's one or two proposals, we still have to have the public hearing. So
Oh,
this
even
is
if
land,
there's just
yeah,
one.
there's just one, because this is land we're giving away for $1. And the public needs to be aware of that.
But to avoid us having the second meeting, if we state today that
And
if
if
it
it's just-
doesn't follow through,
Right,
let's take this one.
so I'll make a motion that if we don't hear back from Brookman by, a week from now or whatever, next day, by X day, that
Our recommendation is just do it.
for $1 to
Sell it.
Ascot, to sell it to Ascot for $1.
subject to provisions, whatever.
Yeah, subject to, yeah, right, yeah, and that thing is all,
That recommendation just goes to council.
Yes,
Believe so, yeah.
yeah,
I,
They approve it.
yeah.
we got to vote on that?
So let's vote on it,
I'll second it.
yeah. Okay, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
So there's 4, still a quorum here. 1, 2, 3, 4, still a quorum.
I'll raise my middle.
Yeah, you guys go like this.
Different matter.
Marcy, will you connect with LMC / Clarity and Hood to figure out what the exact process that we need to follow for
I
this?
already did. So
Okay,
we
so
have
you've got it.
everything dummied down under 101, how to do this
Okay.
correctly.
All your
Once I knew there was
boxes.
two involved, I reached out to the city attorney and said, I'd already researched myself and just said, this is what I see, this is what is true for the state that we have to do.
We done?
Okay, and we voted on that, and anything else? Well, put the hammer down, meeting adjourned. Thank
You
you,
done recording?
thank you, thank you.
Anybody first and second that adjournment?
Josh,
Okay,
Thank you. I can't just say meeting adjourned.
you sure can, we'll fill in the blanks later.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you do at meetings?
Doing the blanks here. Enemies.